Conkel holds a bachelor's degree in education. She is the mother of 6 children, 3 of whom she holds in her heart, 2 that she holds in her hands, and 1 that is still growing. I practice this over and over and over. Okay. She's an amazing person. She's the founder of a nonprofit organization, the author of a book for bereaved mothers, and actively volunteers as a comfort doula and bereavement photographer. She has spoken on the topic of bereavement and neonatal organ donation over 40 times across the United States. She lives with her family in Dayton, Ohio. Welcome, Bethany.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here today. As Megan mentioned, I'm Bethany. I am currently pregnant. I just hit around the 13-week mark, which is why I am sitting. I don't think I'm going to make it standing for an hour presentation, so that's why I'm sitting. I just want to throw that out there. So today we're going to be talking about supporting bereaved mothers. And before we begin, I'm just going to give a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about today. Oh, sorry guys, okay. So I'm going to talk about my story because I think it's going to be important for you guys to know where I'm coming from as a bereaved mother and a support person for bereaved mothers. And I'm going to talk about my story up front, but then I'm going to weave my story into the presentation as we go. We're going to talk about bereavement and breast milk. We're going to talk about the WIC experience after a loss. I'm going to discuss some support organizations, and we're also going to talk about practical ways to support bereaved mothers that you may be working with. Okay, so trigger warning. We're going to be talking about baby death. It's a hard topic. We're going to be talking about bereavement. 1 in 4 moms lose a baby. I'm sure some of you out here have lost a baby, had a pregnancy loss, a miscarriage, an infant death. So there might be some triggers. If you're one of those moms, feel free to get up and leave if you need, or grab tissues. Hopefully everyone around can be supportive. It's an emotional topic, so it's okay to get emotional as you're remembering your own personal journey. I'm also going to be using a lot of quotes from mothers throughout my presentation, and what I did is I went to my social media outlets. I'm part of a lot of different bereavement groups on social media, and I asked them questions about their personal experiences for different aspects that I'm going to incorporate into the presentation. So when I'm starting to quote moms, just know that I got those quotes directly from moms when I asked them on social media. At the end, we are going to have some time for question and answers. So if you have a question, you can hold it for the end. But if it's something that you're just like, I have to ask her right now, feel free to raise your hand and they'll bring you a microphone and you can talk to me right then. I don't mind you guys interacting with me during the presentation. This is about you guys learning and getting what you need out of the presentation today. A lot of things I talk about, I'm sure they're things that you've heard or concepts that you already know, but we're applying it to bereavement, so it might be a little bit different for you. Okay, so my journey began back actually in January of 2012 when I first found out I was pregnant. It was my first baby. It was the first grandbaby for 3 sets of grandparents. We were so excited. This new little life was already making a huge impact for us, and we were thrilled to be parents. In March of 2012, I went for an early ultrasound. I was about 11 weeks pregnant, and we found out our baby had a condition called anencephaly. If you're not familiar with anencephaly, it's a neural tube defect that happens about 28 days after conception, where the neural tube fails to close. This causes the baby to not develop a skull from the eyebrows all the way down to the base of their neck. And typically these babies only develop about 1/3 of the typical brain mass. This condition is considered a terminal diagnosis. There is no treatment. And a lot of moms, after they get this diagnosis, they go ahead and have a medical termination and end their pregnancy. We decided that we were going to carry our baby to term and embrace our pregnancy. We wanted to be the best parents we could be to this baby, love our baby as much as possible, and make as many memories as we could during our pregnancy. To help us do this, we developed a bucket list of things that we would have wanted to do with our baby had our baby been born typical and that we brought our baby home. So we did all sorts of things. We went kayaking, we went hiking, we went camping, we went to our favorite restaurants. My husband read books to the baby. We brought the baby to Chuck E. Cheese. We had a 24-week life day party in lieu of future birthday parties. We got the grandparents involved. We got our church family involved. And we just tried to do the best that we could to fully embrace our time with our baby. We didn't know how much time we'd have after our baby was born, so we wanted to do as much as we could while we were still carrying our baby. The other thing that we really wanted to do is look into neonatal organ donation. We spent about 6 months researching possibilities, and we were told over and over again, unfortunately, your baby's not going to be able to be a donor. 3 days before my scheduled C-section, we had what I call my miracle happen, and we found out that our baby would be able to donate his liver and his pancreas, both to research, 2 different researchers, and then later he was also able to donate his whole body for what I call his internship, where he was gone for 8 months before he received his ashes back. And for us, that really helped in our healing journey, knowing that our baby was able to impact the world around us and not just our community. So it was huge for us. Our son was born September 10th, 2012. His name is Amalia Nathaniel. Amalia is a Hebrew word which means work of the Lord, and Nathaniel means given by God. We wanted to pick a name with a really strong meaning, and we felt that the Lord was going to do something special with our baby, and he really has. It's been amazing. I wish I could just talk about that topic, but we don't have time for that today. He was 4 pounds and 9 ounces, which is one of the reasons he couldn't donate for transplant because he was so small, but that's why he donated for research. He lived for an incredible hour and 20 minutes. As soon as he was born via C-section, they placed him right on my chest, and I held him during the rest of the C-section and then passed him off to my husband for time with him as well. We had about 11 hours with him total in the hospital after he was born, and part of that time he had to be at his recovery surgery. Once the recovery surgery was finished, they brought him back to us, and we spent the whole day celebrating. We had a full birthday party for him with the 0 candle and the cupcakes and the birthday hat, and we had 27 people crammed into my hospital room, and we sang happy birthday to him. We took pictures with all of his toys. We did handprints and footprints. We loved our baby as much as possible. It was an incredible day. I have very few regrets from our day in the hospital with our son. At the end of the day, we handed him over for the last time for him to go to his whole body donation. And it was a difficult thing. I tell people my heart broke when my son died. My heart shattered when I had to hand him over for the last time. But this is what inspired me to get into the work of bereavement. Like I said, organ donation had a huge impact on our healing journey, and by 2013, less than a year later, I started a website about neonatal organ donation, which then turned into my 501c3 nonprofit called Purposeful Gift. And the goal of Purposeful Gift is to educate about neonatal organ, eye, tissue, and whole body donation. And we help moms who are interested in that option after they've been given a terminal diagnosis. Neonatal organ donation is not for everybody. There's a very small percentage of babies who are able to be donors, but for those moms who want to look into it, we're here to help them. We help them get connected with their organ procurement organization in their state and help them go through the process and tell them what to expect and all of the little fine details. We also work directly with organ procurement organizations to help establish neonatal donor programs. And we work with the leading organization that places organs with researchers in the United States and help them found a neonatal donor program. And since our son, he was their first neonatal donor for research, they've now helped over 100 families be able to donate neonatal organs for research. So that's what we do with Purposeful Gift. And I loved what I was doing with Purposeful Gift. I was talking with moms all over the United States. I was working with OPOs, I was speaking, but I really wanted to do something where I was connecting with moms on a personal level. And so I became certified as a bereavement and comfort doula and a bereavement photographer through Sufficient Grace Ministries. And I did that in 2014. And so as a doula, I'm able to go in and actually help moms in the hospital as they say goodbye to their babies. Sufficient Grace Ministries, I'll talk about them a little later. They serve all over Ohio, and they help with moms who've had emergent losses where they go in, they find out there's no heartbeat, yet the mom still has to deliver, or with families who've received a terminal diagnosis and are either going to terminate their pregnancy or continue their pregnancy to term. We help moms develop birth plans, memory items, think through all their options, talk about things that they may not realize are options for them, and then we walk with them before their delivery, during their delivery, and after. We also provide the bereavement photography For our moms who are continuing to term, we also offer free maternity sessions, but then we're there at the hospital the day of when they're delivering, capturing all of their memories. We help the moms bathe their baby, dress their baby, do the handprints and footprints. We do it all right there in the room with them so that they can bond with their baby and make as many memories as possible. And I love getting to do this as a doula. I love being able to go in and connect with these moms when they're at their, their darkest moment, and be able to encourage them and help them have this connection with their baby for a little bit of time that they have. Then in 2017, I did something I never expected to do. I wrote and published a book. I also did all the photography for the book. And working with these moms, I found that there really wasn't a place for moms to go and reflect on their baby's memory in a positive way. There's different places for moms to reflect on, the baby's memory. There's different journals, but I really want it to be something where they could positively remember their baby, have a place where they could actively be parenting their baby's memory. And so the book is part coloring book, part photographs, part inspirational text. And it really kind of is just a place for mom to be able to pull it out and remember their baby in a positive way and spend time reflecting on that memory. And as you guys see, you've received a copy as a tool and a resource. It's in your packets, thanks to the WIC organizers for that. So at this point, I thought my bereavement journey was pretty much finished. I had my son, I'm working with moms, I've written a book, I'm speaking, I'm in a really good place with where my son is. We hit the 5-year mark. I'm in a good spot. My bereavement journey is pretty much good. We're done. I'm on the upswing. Well, I got pregnant unexpectedly. We found out around Thanksgiving of 2017 that I was pregnant. And then one morning in December, I woke up and I was bleeding. And all my friends was like, oh, it's normal. And I'm like, no, I know I'm miscarrying. And that day I gave birth to my baby Poppy, via natural miscarriage. We got pregnant again very quickly, and 2 months to the day where I miscarried my baby, I found out my next baby had no heartbeat. So 2 back-to-back losses. But I worded this very carefully on the screen. I gave birth to baby Poppy via natural miscarriage, and I gave birth to baby Daisy Noel via DNC. I gave birth. So often we think of miscarriage as just something that happens. It's not important, it's just a thing that you experience, you go through. A DNC is just a procedure, it's a surgery, it's no big deal. No, my body gave birth. I was pregnant. I had the hormone changes. I had a life inside of me, and then I lost that life, and I had to deliver that life. How did I deliver Poppy? I delivered that baby via miscarriage. How did I deliver Daisy? I delivered Daisy via DNC, just like I delivered my son via C-section, and I delivered my 2 living girls via VBACs. I had VBACs with my 2 living girls that I have. I forgot to mention I have a 4-year-old and a 2.5-year-old at home, and I gave birth to them both via VBAC without medication. But I gave birth. These were my babies. They were living people, a little person that was inside of me. And so often when we have these moms that have had a miscarriage, we just kind of like brush it off to the side, and society tells us that it's not important, but it is. One of the quotes in my book, it says, "Your worth is not measured by the number of your days. Rather, it is through inherent and intrinsic ways." These babies have worth just for being a person. It doesn't matter if they lived outside the womb or how long they lived outside the womb. They still have value, and they are still significant, and they're still important. And I think a lot of moms feel that importance of their baby, and they have that connection with their baby, but they don't know how to express it because society tells them that their baby wasn't important and that it wasn't real yet, and that it was just a fetus, or it was just a procedure, or it was just a miscarriage. So that's something to keep in mind as we go through the rest of our presentation. And I'm hoping at this point my lost journey is done, but we will have to see what this baby ends up doing. Okay, so now we're gonna switch over, and we're gonna start talking a little bit about milk and loss. I know with WIC, one of the major things you do is talk about breastfeeding and the importance of breastfeeding. And so it's really important to talk about moms who've experienced loss, because a lot of times they have milk that comes in. So one of the questions that came up when I was doing this, and a lot of the moms I work with, they say they have an early loss, and they look at me and say, will I have my milk come in? So when does milk come in for different moms? Well, there is a lot of variables. When you talk to most lactation consultants, they're going to tell a mom that has like a first trimester or a mid-second trimester loss that they don't need to worry about their milk coming in. But that's not necessarily true. We need to consider the variables. When was the last time that mom was breastfeeding? When was that last time that mom was pregnant? What is that mom's hormones doing? So what I did is I got in one of my groups and I asked moms if they had an early miscarriage, did they have their milk come in? And here are some of my responses. One mom was 18 weeks and she was producing for over a month. Another mom, I had 2 different moms say at 19 weeks they had their milk come in 5 days after their loss. Another mom at 19 weeks lost her baby, and she said 3 days later her milk came in and she had enough milk to express and save to create breast milk jewelry. Another mom reported at her 9-week, 3-day loss, she had her milk come in. This mom said she had a 25-week loss. She had only stopped breastfeeding a few months before, and she had a lot of milk that came in that she had to deal with. She later had a 15-week loss, and she said thankfully she had no milk come in that time. Another mom had 22-week twins that she lost, and this mom had enough milk that she was able to pump and donate to her sister-in-law. This mom had a 12-week, 4-day loss, and she was still nursing her 1-year-old, and she felt a huge influx in her milk supply. This mom had a 20-week loss. Her milk came in 3 days later, and it lasted for over a month. This mom had a 22-week loss. It was her first baby, and she said she had a lot of milk. Later, at her 7-week loss, she had no milk come in. A lot of moms reported, late second trimester and third trimester losses, that they had a lot of milk that they could pump and donate. For me personally, I talked about Daisy and Poppy, and one I lost at 6 weeks, one I lost at 8 weeks, but because they were back to back, my body was so confused that I actually had my milk come in. I had milk that I could hand express and actually have fluid milk coming out of my breasts. And that was after 2 early miscarriages. And so it happens. It wasn't enough for me to be able to pump and donate, but it was enough to remind me that my body had a baby inside of it that it was preparing to feed. I had a little human that my body was trying to prepare to give life to with that milk. And so I think it's really important that we realize that just because a mom has an early loss doesn't mean that she won't have to deal with milk coming in. And so on the slide, I say after an 8 or 9 week miscarriage, the mom could potentially have milk come in. And so, it might not happen for every mom, but what are the variables? Was she still breastfeeding, or had she just finished breastfeeding, or did she have multiple losses in a row that made her hormones do crazy things like my body did? The other thing is it could be several days after a loss. I've had some moms text me and say, they just leave the hospital after their loss, and I've supported them, and they're like, I'm doing really good, and then 4 or 5 days later I get a message saying my milk just came in. And for them it's like a punch in the face. They have to deal with it. They're 4 or 5 days out, they think they're in the clear, and then bam, they're having to deal with their milk that's coming in. So it may not be right away. So moms think if they're leaving the hospital and they don't have their milk come in yet that they're okay, but it could come in later. And so it's another really important thing to try to prepare a mom for is say, you may get milk, you may not. It may come in right away, or it may be 4, 5, 6 days down the road. Just be prepared for it. The amount of milk will vary. As in these stories I read, some people said that their milk lasts over a month. Some moms had enough that they could pump and donate. For me, with my losses, thankfully, it only lasted a couple days, and so I didn't have to deal with it very long, but it will vary. And any amount of milk can be a huge trigger for a bereaved mom. Like I said, it's for a lot of moms, it's a very painful reminder that their body was preparing to give life and feed their baby, and they don't have that baby anymore. For other moms, they're able to turn around and find it as a positive and be able to donate that milk. But for most moms, having to deal with the fact that they have milk is very much salt in the womb, or in the wound. So what can these moms do when they have their milk come in? There's really 2 main options. They can either try to pump and donate their milk, or they can work on drying their milk up. So we're going to talk about what I like to call legacy milk, and that's milk that moms pump and donate, because really when you are pumping and donating solely to give that milk away, you are creating a legacy for that baby. You're not going to be feeding your baby all, but you are creating a legacy for your baby through donating that milk. There's a couple ways that moms can go about this, and one is through a formal milk bank setting. I know here in Ohio we have a really great mother's milk bank that you can donate to. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of donating through a milk bank and talk about the pros and cons of donating through other methods. So, like I said, it's really great having the Mother's Milk Bank here. There's no minimum amount that you have to donate for bereaved moms. For a regular mom who's going to be donating, they have a certain minimum number of ounces that you have to donate, but for a bereaved mother, they will accept any amount of donation. And I know that at least they used to supply containers or bags for the moms to be able to use. The hard part is there is interviews, there's forms that have to be filled out, moms have to have blood work done, they have to drop that milk off at a certain location or have that milk mailed in. There's a lot of rules on what medications you can be on at the time that you're pumping and donating. So for a bereaved mother to donate through the milk bank, it can be very challenging. You just left the hospital without your baby, and now you're having to go get blood work done, you're having to fill out paperwork. The logistics of it can be very, very difficult. And so not every mom is going to want to do that. If a mom had maybe the mom had a C-section or had a very rough delivery and she's now on some medication, pain medication, she's going to have to pump and dump that milk for a while. So it's, some things to realize. But the nice thing is it is regulated. That milk is pasteurized. That milk that's donated gets mixed with other moms' milk. And you know exactly where it's going. You know that it's been properly taken care of. For the moms and the babies who are receiving that milk, they have less worries because they know that it's gone through the proper channels. The donor mother knows exactly where that milk's going. And for a lot of moms, especially if that milk is going to go to the NICU or the NICU to help the smallest babies, that's a huge thing for moms. They really love knowing that these tiny, sick little babies in the NICU are receiving this milk. So that's a huge positive. Some moms fear that the milk bank could be making a profit off of the milk that's donated. And different states have different things, and you read different things online, but that is a fear for some moms. So that's something that might be a roadblock for a mom to donate to a milk bank. The other main form of donation is a direct donation, and that's where a mom isn't donating through the milk bank, but they're donating directly to another individual, whether it's a person that they know, like the one mom said she donated to her sister-in-law who wasn't producing, or you can join there's different groups. The main ones are Eats on Feets and Human Milk for Human Babies. Both of these groups have Facebook where you basically search for like Eats on Feets Ohio or Eats on Feets Pennsylvania or Human Milk for Human Babies in whatever state or whichever region. And so moms can join these groups and they can see what people are looking for, what the need is out there. They can post what they have available, and then they can decide who and where and when and why they want to donate their milk. This is a pro and a con. When you donate through an organization like Eats on Feets or Human Milk for Human Babies, you get to actually meet the person you're donating your milk to. For some moms, this is huge. They want to know who's receiving their milk. They want to know the story behind the baby that is getting that milk. For other moms, it's a huge trigger. They don't want to know and watch that baby grow and develop when their baby doesn't get the milk. They just want to donate and be done with it. They don't want to have to interact with another person. So that can be a huge pro or a huge con depending on the personality of the mother who's donating. There are less restrictions, which is a pro and a con. So I had one mom who said she had prepared to donate a huge batch of milk to the milk bank, and she was on a medication, like a sleep medication that she thought was approved, and she found out that no, that wasn't going to be approved, and she was going to have to dump all that milk. And so thankfully she went to one of these groups, I think it was Eats on Feets, and she connected with a mother who didn't mind the fact that she was on the sleep medication and took her milk and still fed it to her baby. So there's less restrictions as long as you're upfront and tell the recipient mother, here's what I've been eating, here's what I've been drinking, here's the medications I'm on. That's open-ended. That's a choice of that mother who's receiving that milk is going to make. So that can be a pro or a con depending on how you look at it. There's no money exchanged. This is not selling your milk, this is you donating and giving your milk to somebody else. Mothers can request to have bags replaced because bags do get expensive, so they can ask the recipient mother to replace the same number of bags that they are giving. But the biggest thing is it's a huge trust factor, both on the donor mother and on the recipient mother. The donor mother is trusting that the person receiving her milk is going to actually use the milk for what they said that they're going to use it for. They're trusting that that other person's not going to turn around and sell the milk later, but that the milk is actually going to go to the baby. And it's a big trust factor on the recipient mom. They're trusting that the person giving them the milk is telling the truth about what they're taking. You don't know what is really in that breast milk. There's no way to test it. And so it's a huge trust factor. So some people don't really like the fact that there are organizations like this because they're not regulated, that milk isn't being tested for various things. But this is an option for moms. So those are the two main options. It would be donating through the formal milk banks or donating a direct donation like one of these. The third option is selling your milk. Average milk runs from $1 to $2.50 for an ounce on the market, but specialty milk for like moms who are gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free or nut-free or any combination of those specialty milks the prices are ridiculous what some people are willing to pay per ounce for that milk. And sometimes it's moms that are desperate because they have a baby that has a very particular need and they have to have that gluten-free or dairy-free milk. But there are also male bodybuilders who will buy this milk and use it as a supplement. And it's this milk that's sold on the black market for these male bodybuilders to get this specialty milk and use it for their own purposes. So, but it's important to let moms know what options they have. They have the option of donating. They have the option of looking into selling their milk. These things exist. I'm not saying what is right or what is wrong. I'm just trying to inform, and I think it's important to inform mothers on what's out there. One of the things that I did is I asked moms to share their stories of legacy milk. And so I asked moms how long they pumped, how many ounces they donated, and what was the best part and what was the worst part of their experience. So I just want to share some of those. So this mom pumped for 7 to 8 months after her loss, and she donated about 2,000 ounces. She said the best part was doing something. She just was able to do something after her loss. She also said that for her, getting the extra oxytocin was huge, and she also really liked being able to take a 15-minute break at work. The worst part for her was doing the extra dishes. This mom pumped for 3 months and donated about 1,500 ounces. The best part was that she found a mother on human milk for human babies that had just been diagnosed with breast cancer and couldn't nurse due to chemotherapy. And so she knew that that baby would not receive breast milk except for the fact that she was supplying it. The worst part was pumping around the clock after a C-section while grieving. She wanted to do more to honor her daughter, but she knew mentally it was time to stop. And that's one thing that a lot of moms who pump and donate, it's really hard when it finally comes time for them to stop because it's another end. It's not really a loss, but it's another formality and finality of their journey. This mom pumped for 3 to 4 months and donated over 1,000 ounces. The best part was having something normal to do after having a baby. Also, she cited writing her baby's name on the milk bags every single time. She loved getting to write her baby's name down. Having quiet time to think about her baby, and then seeing how much the donated milk meant to the mother who was receiving it. The worst part was cleaning the pumping parts, pumping while on vacation, and trying to store the milk. This mom said that she had donated to the Eats on Feets and to one of the mother milk banks, so she split up her donation. This mom donated for 3 months and donated about 300 ounces. She said the best part was knowing that her baby's legacy lived on, and it gave her a purpose and allowed her to process her grief. The worst part was pumping itself. She said it tore up my nipples. I felt like I wasn't donating enough because I wasn't getting enough supply. This mom pumped for 3.5 weeks and donated 100 ounces. The best part was when the local mother told her how much her son was thriving on her milk, and it made it all worth it. The worst part was the fact that her milk dried up quickly and she couldn't continue pumping. This mom is a rock star. She pumped for 4.5 months and donated 5,000 ounces of milk. She donated to 15 local babies, and she also donated to a milk bank. And she said, for the best part for her was holding on to something physical of her baby until she was ready to let it go and to donate it, helping other mothers feed their babies. And then the worst part was everything for those months revolved around pumping because she became obsessed with pumping and donating 5,000 ounces. She became obsessed with her goal. This mom is really, I know this mom, and she's pretty incredible. So she was actually part of a breastfeeding group that did like a feed-in in the park, and that they had a photographer come and take pictures of the whole group breastfeeding in the park. And since she didn't have a baby to breastfeed, she hooked herself up to both her pumps and had the photo of her baby sitting in her lap. And was still part of the photo. And I just thought how amazing it was to, one, raise awareness for breastfeeding, but also to raise awareness for pumping and donating and lactation in another way. So she's a pretty incredible mama. This mom pumped for 3 months and donated 500 ounces. She said that the entire experience was bittersweet, more sweet than bitter, but still bittersweet. This mom pumped for a month and a half and donated 500 ounces. The best part was knowing I still had part of him with me and that he was physically helping others. It was therapeutic. She said she had no negative memories of her experience. This mom pumped for a month and a half and donated 160 ounces. The best part was feeling like she was making a difference and the normalcy of having pumping after having a previous baby. The worst was supply issues, and then setting an alarm and waking up in the middle of the night. She finally had to stop because of fatigue. And this mom pumped for a month and a half, and she donated 50 ounces. And she said the worst part was pumping frequently but having a low output. It was very upsetting. It was a constant reminder that I should be feeding my baby instead of being hooked up to a pump. I couldn't part with all of her milk, and I still have 1 ounce in the freezer. She went on to become a lactation consultant, and she now works with other mothers, including bereaved mothers, and encouraging them to pump and donate when appropriate. One mom noted also in her experience that it really wasn't just her experience, but it was a family experience. She said there's no way she could have pumped and donated after her loss if it weren't for the support of her family, and that included her husband and her other children. And this mom had children that I want to say were between the ages of 3 and 5. But she said, it took time away from her living children to stop and pump and donate. It was mentally and emotionally, fatiguing as well. And so without the experience, the help from her family, she never would have had that experience. I thought that was really interesting perspective, that pumping and donating is really a family experience. And this mom wanted to share the discouragement that she had from the very start. When she first met with the lactation consultant at the hospital and said that she was going to pump and donate, the lactation consultant pretty much told her not to even try, and really discouraged her from doing it. She ended up getting connected with another person who was a lactation consultant who encouraged her, but she ended up having mastitis more than once. She was exhausted. Her first round of milk she couldn't donate due to a prescription she was on, but she continued doing it. In the end, she was so thankful that she did. And I also want to share a little bit about my story. So when I had my son, I told you, we want to donate his organs, we want him to make a difference, but I really wanted to pump and donate my breast milk. I had worked with babies that had spent time in NICUs, and I knew how important it was. And so this is something I set up months in advance. I called the Ohio Milk Bank. They sent me a box of containers. I had it all ready to go. I wrote it into my birth plan that I was going to be doing this. I was excited. I mean, people have been telling me it's going to be too hard, it's going to be difficult, you're not going to want to do it. I'm like, no, this is going to be great. I'm going to do this. This is what I want to do. I'm going to help make another legacy for my baby through milk donation. So I give birth to my baby, and the lactation consultant told me I'd have to start pumping and donating right away, or else my milk wouldn't come in. So my baby went to his recovery surgery, we got him back, I'm spending a little bit of time with my baby, and they come to me and say, you need to start pumping now or else your milk's not going to come in. Guys, I only had 10 hours total with my baby during the day. That's the only time I ever had with him. And some of that time I was spending trying to hook myself up to a pump with a lactation consultant that wasn't supportive, and trying to figure out how to do this. I had to kick all my family and friends out of the room so I could try to pump, because if I didn't do it right then, my milk would never come in and I wouldn't be able to donate. So I hooked myself up and I'm trying my best to pump. I don't know what went wrong, but I ended up with massive blisters all the way around my areolas that ended up busting and bleeding. It was horrible. So, they brought me new phalange sizes, but that didn't seem to fit right either. And basically, the lactation consultant said, you shouldn't be doing this. So, we get to the end of the day. We spent the time we had with our son. We said goodbye. I'm grieving. I'm exhausted. I had a C-section. My emotions were everywhere. And yet, it's time to pump again. And if I don't pump right now, I'm not going to be able to donate. So I get hooked up to the pump again, and I'm pumping, and I'm only getting tiny amount out, and I'm asking the nurse, is this normal? And she doesn't really know what to say. She's trying to be encouraging, but it's late at night, everybody's tired, and then I'm trying to figure out how to clean these pump parts, and I'm still in this fog, and then I'm setting my alarm for the middle of the night so I can wake up and pump and donate, because if I don't do it every 2 hours, all through the night, my milk's not gonna come in, I'm not gonna be able to donate. By the next day, guys, I was so discouraged. And I asked him, I said, well, I'm gonna be leaving, in a couple days. What am I supposed to do about a pump? And they're like, oh, well, you either have to purchase a pump or you can rent a pump. I'm like, isn't there one that I can borrow? And they're like, no, you're gonna have to rent one. So I called the children's hospital in my area, and I asked how much it was gonna be to rent one, and it was more than we could afford per month. And I said, guys, I'm pumping and donating, my baby died. Can't I borrow one for free? And they're like, no, there's no way that we can give it to you for free. And so by the time I left the hospital, I was so discouraged. I was sore, I was blistered, I was bleeding. I gave up. I left the hospital and I said, I am not going to do this. There is no way I can do this. And all the milk I was pumping, I was having to dump because I was on pain medication after having a C-section. And the lactation consultants were basically like, this would be too difficult anyways. I had no support whatsoever. That is one of my biggest regrets after having my son, is that I didn't get to pump and donate my milk. So I go home, we're preparing for his memorial service, and guess what happened, guys? My milk came in. I'm so engorged. I was massive, it was like boulders, and I'm a small person, they were huge. And there was nothing I could do. I didn't have a pump. I ended up borrowing a pump from a friend just to help release some. And hand expressing when you're that engorged doesn't work. It was horrible. I'm sitting at my son's memorial service trying to hug people, and I'm like, oh, don't touch me, because of how engorged I was. It took forever for it to finally go back down. I wish I had had somebody that had been supportive and told me I could take my time and told me that I could make it through and had worked with me on trying to figure out how to get a pump. And had told me, take your time to grieve in the hospital. Yes, you need a pump, but you don't have to do it every 2 hours religiously right after you had a C-section and your son died. I wish they hadn't come into the room and taken that time away. I had such a small amount of time with my son. I wish I hadn't wasted any of it trying to pump. I wish they had worked with me to get the right flange sizes. This is part of my story, and that's one of the, like I said, the biggest regrets I have is that I didn't get to do that. So how do you support these moms that are wanting to pump and donate and are going through this? So if you guys know that a mom has had a loss and is going to continue pumping and donating, guys, send them text encouragements. Become their biggest cheerleader. Make sure that they have a way to get a pump if they don't have one that's going to be a good pump and not just a handheld pump. Let them know ways to increase their milk supply if they're struggling. They may not know that there's certain foods that they can eat in their diet that is going to increase that milk supply. They may not know that there's milk tea out there that they can purchase and drink to help boost their milk supply. They may not know about power pumping. They may not know these things, so educate them on how to increase their milk supply, but be their biggest cheerleader. Listen to them, find out what their concerns are, encourage them, let them know that they don't need to meticulously pump every 2 hours around their clock or their milk's not going to come in. Let them know that they can still get into a good routine and still have milk. I'm sorry, I'm just looking over my thing, but yeah, be their biggest cheerleader, encourage them, help them, listen to them, validate their feelings, and let them know that they can do this. One thing that I do want to mention for moms who do pump and donate, the one mom said that it was really difficult for her to give away all of her baby's milk and she still kept 1 ounce in the freezer. And she'll probably always have that 1 ounce in the freezer. Some moms that decide to pump and donate also look into making milk jewelry. A lot of people on Etsy will create jewelry for moms who are interested. There's pendants, there's beads, there's rings, there's earrings, there's all sorts of different things. And it's a special way to hold on to something of your baby's. Now, not every mom's gonna want this, not every mom's gonna be able to afford this, the prices vary, but it's still a really neat thing to know about, to let moms know that it exists. So on the other end of the spectrum, you're gonna have moms that have their milk come in, and they're not gonna want to have their milk come in. They're gonna wanna end that milk. They're gonna wanna make it go away. So we're gonna talk about some of the ways to help relieve that supply. One of our favorite products that we like to recommend at Sufficient Grace Ministries is the No More Milk Tea by Earth Mama Angel Baby. And it can be, like Kroger's carries it. A lot of places carry it. It's readily available, and it is really wonderful in helping decrease that milk supply. Also cabbage leaves, buying the cabbage leaves, freezing them, and being able to stick that right inside your bra will help bring relief. Some moms cite using a Sudafed or another decongestant will help dry up those milk ducts. Now, obviously, this needs to be done under the care of their provider to make sure that they're taking the right amount and all of those things. But that decongestant really can help dry up those milk ducts. There is prescription medication that used to be used a lot, but from the research I was looking at, a lot of doctors no longer will prescribe a prescription medication just because there are so many side effects that really it wasn't worth it because the moms are having to deal with so many side effects from that medication. Obviously, encouraging the mom to not stimulate their breasts at all. That includes taking the hot shower, the water is running across their breasts because it helps increase that milk. Telling them to hand express if needed, but as little as possible, trying to stay away from the pump unless they're so engorged that they have to use it. A lot of moms will turn to binding their breasts. This is something that I did with my son because I didn't know any better. The hard part is the binding can encourage things like mastitis and clogged ducts, but encouraging them to wear a very supportive bra, using cold compresses, and then there are a lot of different herbal remedies and essential oils for moms that are interested in those things. And these are pretty basic things that a lot of us already know, but moms who are in the moment trying to figure out how to get rid of this milk that they don't want, they may not think of these things. They may not go and know how to research to come up with this list of things. So being able to provide this milk this list of things to the mom is going to be very important. It's also, I have on here to talk about mastitis and clogged ducts. So this is something that our moms who pump and donate deal with, but it's also some things that our moms who want to get rid of their milk deal with. I had a mom, she had an early miscarriage, and she ended up having a duct that clogged and actually abscessed, and she had to have it drained. And so it's something to know that it can happen, it's a complication, and so it's really important to do proper breast care while they're trying to get rid of that milk to avoid some of these problems. How do you encourage moms that don't want to donate and want to dry up their milk? Like I said, provide resources for them, but also letting them know that it's okay, that they don't want to have their milk. Some moms will feel guilty, like I'm not doing enough, I should be pumping and donating, but they don't really want to. So letting them know that it's okay that you're not pumping and donating, it's okay to dry up your milk, and validate those feelings and comforting them. And I think there's no correct choice when it comes to something like this. What's right for one person isn't going to be right for the next person. There's family situations to consider. Moms who are pumping and donating, they're also not going to necessarily get their cycle back as quickly. So if a mom is going to want to try to get pregnant very quickly again after her loss, maybe she doesn't want to pump and donate so that she has a better chance of getting pregnant again. So there's a lot of factors to consider. So there's no correct choice. It's really important to make sure that we don't put donor moms up on a pedestal and act like they're better than a mom who decides to dry up their breast milk. Okay, so before I switch topics, is there any quick questions about milk and donation or milk and bereavement? Okay, so we're going to start talking about bereavement and the WIC experience in general. When I decided, when I was invited to come speak, I really wanted to think about what have moms experienced when they've been on WIC and had a loss. And so I definitely went to the different groups and asked moms what their experiences were, and I'm going to share some of those. But one major question came up multiple times is, Why provide WIC for 6 months after a loss? Why would a mom even want to continue receiving WIC benefits? After a loss, mom can receive benefits for 6 months. Why would they even want that? Are they just wanting free food? Are they wanting to somehow get extra formula even though they don't have a baby? I mean, this is the mindset of the general population. And so, I mean, obviously, you know, a lot of us know the answers. They gave birth. Their body needs to recover from giving birth. They were just pregnant. They need to have proper nutrition. They need to get their body back in a better place. And again, it doesn't matter if it's an early loss or a later loss. Their body gave birth, and they're gonna need nutrition to help, you know, support their body. I was doing some research, and the Times published a study where they followed 1,000 women who had losses prior to 20 weeks. 76% of these women tried to get pregnant within 3 months of their previous loss. So not only did they just give birth and their body needs to have the nutrients to be replaced, but they are also actively trying to get pregnant again. 76% of these moms were trying to get pregnant again, so their body needs to be in a spot to be able to do that if that's what the mom's wishing. So it's important for these moms to be able to have proper nutrition. The Mayo Clinic and WebMD both published studies citing that moms who conceive within 6 months of a miscarriage have less complications to the subsequent pregnancy. So we're seeing that not only are moms wanting to get pregnant quickly again, but it's actually better for their future pregnancies if they do get pregnant again quickly after loss. Only 1% of moms end up having recurrent miscarriages. I get to be part of that 1%. I'm special. But it's really important that these moms are getting healthy, and not just with nutrients, but also getting mental and emotional support as they're grieving their loss and then trying again for another baby. So I want to share some of the experiences that people shared with me when they were on WIC and had a loss. So I basically said, if you've had a loss at any gestation and you were on WIC, do you mind sharing your experience with me? And I'm going to read through these, and then we're going to go and talk a little bit more about ways to support moms. And some of these are positive and some of these are negative. So this mom said, I called the WIC office and let them know about losing my baby. There was no I'm sorry or anything. They just told me to come into the office and get recertified. This mom said, I simply texted our worker and asked her to cancel my checks and get me off of it. I didn't want to talk to anyone, and I certainly didn't want to be using the checks. She was great. Just being able to text her instead of having to call was a blessing. Now, these are from moms from all over different states. This isn't just Ohio moms, and different places do it differently. Some of these may have been older losses. They didn't say what year they lost their baby. This one said, I had just spoken to a worker the day I found out our little one had no heartbeat. I heard from her about 2 weeks later. She was just calling to give support, condolences, and check on me. She was extremely sincere, and with my emotions still churning, it meant a lot to me. So that person took the time to make a call just to check on her, and it meant the world to her. This mom says, one of my worst experiences during my pregnancy with my daughter with anencephaly was the WIC office. At every appointment, I was asked if I planned to breastfeed, and she had already shared that her baby was going to die after birth. During my pregnancy, they required that I take the breastfeeding information class, even though they knew the diagnosis. At every appointment after my pregnancy, I had older kids on WIC. They continued to ask if I was still breastfeeding. I kindly reminded them that I experienced a loss, but my kindness was less and less after every appointment. I finally asked to speak with a supervisor and suggested that there be a way for them to note in their computer system when someone experienced a loss. She told me there was, in fact, a way for this to be done, and that it had been done and noted in my file, but that the staff were just failing to look at it. It was frustrating. I can't imagine being in that mom's shoes, having already told them that my baby was going to die and being asked every single time if they're going to breastfeed or why they aren't continuing to breastfeed, and having it noted in the file and the people not looking at it. This mom said, I was in a small town where WIC employees knew you from everyday life. I had just received our second diagnosis of anencephaly, and I had a WIC check to pick up at the appointment the next day. She called to remind me, but I couldn't bring myself to go. A week later, I got my check in the mail and a nice handwritten note about how she had heard about our situation and wanted to make it easier on me, and said to just call and schedule an appointment later in the month. It was very much appreciated and took a lot of added stress away. During my pregnancy with my twins, one was healthy and one had anencephaly, the WIC office was terrible. I feel like when someone tells you they're carrying 2 babies but one will not make it, you should be compassionate and sympathetic. All of the employees there didn't even blink an eye. Every time I had to remind them of the situation and they still proceeded to be rude per usual at every appointment. I was on WIC when I lost Charlotte. They were beyond amazing. I went past my due date and didn't want to leave my house for an appointment to continue benefits. They did my appointment over the phone and gave me comforting words to let me know to contact them when I was ready after I delivered her. The staff was very caring and continued my benefits for a while after my loss. They even have a picture of her on her computer to raise awareness for her condition, and they share her story and talk highly about my strength as a mother. I'm currently pregnant and they have continued to be supportive and caring. They went above and beyond for this mom to let her know that her baby was important and that she was important. I called a week after my baby died, and the lady said just how sorry she was and that she would update my chart. Then about 10 minutes later, she called me back and she forgot to tell me that I could stay on WIC for 6 months just like the normal moms. It really hit her wrong that she was considered a normal mom right after she lost her baby. I went in for my 3-month meeting and they didn't really say anything about it, but I don't think they really knew what to say or how to respond to me. So a wide range of moms who've had experiences. I posted in several groups and I got a good number of responses, but I didn't get a lot of responses. A lot of moms just didn't even want to talk about their experiences for various reasons. So I love that these moms did share. I love that there is positive experiences and negative experiences. I think that we can learn a lot from what was shared. So I think it's important to know that there's a lot of triggers for these moms after they experience loss to come back to WIC. And I haven't shared this yet, but I am actually a WIC recipient myself. I did not receive WIC at the time of my loss with my son, so I wasn't on WIC with him, but I was on WIC with my daughters who are living. And when I got pregnant with my first baby that I miscarried, I had not called yet to report that I was pregnant. I was waiting for my 8-week appointment and I miscarried. I didn't know that I could still try to get WIC benefits at that point, so I didn't. And then with the next pregnancy, even though I made it further, I said, I'm not calling. If I lose this baby again, I don't want to have to make another phone call. I don't want to have to tell them I was pregnant and I had another loss. I don't even want to go there. So I never was on WIC benefits for myself during one of my active losses. But now I'm pregnant again, and I am back on WIC for myself as well as my girls. And this last time when I went in, I had to fill out the paperwork, and at least at our office, there's a purple form that I had to fill out that's about the breastfeeding history. So I'm sitting there looking at it, I'm like, how do I fill this out? I mean, I could just talk about my 2 girls, how I breastfed my Hazel for 14 months, and I breastfed my Eliza for 16 months, but that's not my whole story. So I wrote in there how I had my son and I tried to pump and donate, but I failed. Then I talked about my 2 girls. And then I talked about how I had back-to-back miscarriages and my milk came in, but it wasn't enough to do anything with and I had to dry it out. I didn't have to do that. I'm sure a lot of moms don't, but it's part of my story. It's part of my breastfeeding history. But guys, it's not super easy to sit there and have to write it all out. And again, I could have just avoided it, but it's part of my story and part of what I've gone through. So it's a little bit of a trigger having to fill that out and do that. So filling out the forms can be a trigger. And on there's, when was the last time you were pregnant? Well, I had to write my last miscarriage, which wasn't that long ago. So there's a lot of little things that we don't even realize. I mean, it's important information. It needs to be on the form, but there are things that are triggers for moms who've had a loss. The timing of appointments. If a mom has, a 12-week loss and she receives WIC benefits for 6 months, then she's going to be getting off of her WIC benefits right when her baby's supposed to be born. How hard is that for a mom to know that they're going to be losing their WIC benefits right when they should be having their baby? That would be really hard. For moms that have a later loss and they have to go back in for an appointment, maybe that's the appointment that they should be bringing their newborn to. That would be really difficult to have to walk into that office knowing that they should have a baby in their arms, but they don't. For a mom that maybe had an infant and that infant dies from SIDS or some unexpected thing, they're walking back into that office. The last time they were in that office, they may have had their baby with them. And so then they're returning to a place where they had their baby before and they don't have their baby any longer. That would be really difficult. But it's also difficult sitting in the appointment and you're seeing pregnant mamas, you're seeing pregnant bellies, and your belly's no longer pregnant. you don't get to be there, and you realize that mom's probably due right when you were due, and you're no longer pregnant. Or you're looking and you're seeing these babies, and you're like, I wonder if my baby would have looked like that. It's just hard. It's a trigger. And there's no way of changing some of these things. There's no way to really fix it, but it's good to be aware of what moms are going through and why they might be emotional by the time they get back to talk to somebody. Answering questions during different appointments. Things come up and you end up having to talk about your previous loss. Maybe the mom doesn't want to talk about her loss that day. Maybe it's just not a good day to talk about it, but they have to. It's a trigger. It's difficult. Again, subsequent pregnancies, you're filling out the forms, but in the back of your mind, you're remembering your babies that you don't have, the ones that you wish you had in your arms, but you don't. The whole thing is just really hard, and so I think it's really important for everybody on the staff to be aware of that. For moms who've experienced loss, their emotions are going to be all over the place. It's going to be really difficult, and different things are going to be huge triggers for them. So they might be a little grumpy to deal with, but they have a reason. They're not just trying to be grumpy. They're not trying to be nasty. They're not trying to be mean. It's that they're having to process a whole lot of stuff and try to keep their composure. Maybe they have their other kids with them, and their other kids may not even know that mommy lost a baby. And so they're trying to wrangle their toddlers and still talk about the fact that they've had a loss, and their other kids don't even know what's going on. So there's a lot of factors that have to be considered. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to be clicking my PowerPoint here. I'm sorry. The other thing that I want to bring a point out is making sure people know that they can receive WIC after a loss. I have a friend who is in a different state, and she is a bereavement coordinator at her hospital. She works with all the moms who experience loss at different gestation ages. She works with them in the hospital, but she also does follow-up care. And she realized that almost all of her clients qualified for WIC. And she was talking to them in the aftercare appointments, and she realized none of them were continuing their WIC benefits. And so she asked why, and none of them knew that they could even receive WIC benefits. So she finally went to the WIC office in her state, and they hadn't been telling moms. None of their moms, they weren't informing anybody that they could be receiving benefits for 6 more months. And so she's helping make a huge change in her state on the WIC level so that people are actually being educated about it. But it's really important that moms know that they can receive benefits. I read the one story about the mom who called, they updated her chart, and then 10 minutes later the person remembered and called her back and said, oh yeah, by the way, you can receive WIC benefits. So it's just something to make a mental note of, making sure these moms realize that they can receive benefits. And I don't know if there weren't very many experiences that people shared because people aren't continuing benefits. We had the mom in here who shared after her loss, she certainly didn't want to continue on WIC. So there are going to be moms who don't even want to have to continue on WIC, and they're going to want to stop. But letting moms know that it's an option is really important. Okay. So I'm going to talk briefly about some different organizations that are helpful in supporting moms who've had a loss. And I'm sorry, I moved some PowerPoint slides around, so let me get to the right slide here. And you guys should have a handout in your folder that has a list of all of these organizations that I'm going to mention. I'm going to go through them very briefly, but you should have that in there as well. So Compassionate Friends is an organization that's all over the United States. They have local chapters, and they provide in-person support groups for moms who have had a loss. And this isn't just for pregnancy loss, this is for moms who lose a child at any age. And so Compassionate Friends is a great resource. Held Your Whole Life is a wonderful nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit that provides free memorial jewelry for moms who've experienced a stillbirth or a miscarriage. There is a shipping charge that applies, but I think it's like $5. So a mom can receive this memorial necklace for $5, the cost of shipping. Molly Bears provides specially weighted bears that are the exact same weight as your baby at the time that they passed away. And it gives the mom something to hold and put in their arms. The Perinatal Hospice website, this is a clearinghouse of information for a mom who's received a terminal diagnosis for her baby, and it's a really wonderful resource. Poor perinatal diagnosis is for a mom who may not have the best diagnosis for their baby. Their baby might not die, but they might need to have some extra support, so that's a good place to go to. The Pregnancy Loss and Infant Death Directory breaks it down state by state and provides resources in every state So I really like that one. The next resource is Purposeful Gift, which is my nonprofit. If you have a family that's continuing a pregnancy after a terminal diagnosis and they ask about organ donation, feel free to send them to Purposeful Gift. We can help get them connected to the right organizations. Share pregnancy and infant loss support. They have online resources. They have in-person support in 29 states, and they give out packets for families. Still Standing is an online magazine. They also have a huge presence on Facebook, and it's articles written by bereaved parents for bereaved parents, and it's a lot of really encouraging things that moms can connect to. Sufficient Grace Ministries, I put a little bunch of little stars by this one. We serve all over Ohio. All of the support we provide is free of charge for families. We support in both emergent losses, like I said earlier, and for families who are continuing their pregnancy or even ending their pregnancy after a terminal diagnosis. We provide care packages. We have an online birth plan. We provide online and in-person support in different parts of Ohio. We have the photography. We also provide aftercare for all of our families as well. The Tears Foundation is really unique because they provide funds to assist in the cost of burial and cremation. A lot of your moms, that might be a huge stressor point. They know they're going to lose their baby, but how are they going to afford to lay their baby to rest? This organization helps provide, cover those costs. And then Trappist Caskets, they make handmade caskets and urns, and they provide those free of charge, and they will ship them to your location even overnight if they have to. And they're like these beautifully ornate, hand-carved wooden caskets by these monks that live out in the woods. So it's a pretty cool organization. So we're going to go back and talk, though. So these are organizations it's good to know about. You can research. I could have added 30 others to this list. There's a lot of organizations out there to support bereaved mothers. I know each of you aren't an expert in bereavement, and you don't have at your fingertips, a place to send a mom. So it's good to have a list of some places, and there's a lot more that you can Google. But what are some practical ways that you can really help a mom who is at your office, who's had a loss? What are some things that you can do? And so that's what we're going to cover next. And the biggest thing is, what to say and what not to say. So I got a huge response from this, and I'm probably not going to read all of them, but I asked moms what were the best things that somebody did or said to them after their loss, and what were the worst things that somebody said or did to them after their loss. So I'm going to read through this list, and then I'm going to, again, talk about some practical ways that you can support moms. So I'm going to start with the things not to say, and I kind of have them grouped in little categories. And this category is the at least category. I'm sure this isn't going to be a surprise to you, especially if you've had a loss before. So saying anything that starts with at least you can try again. At least you're young. At least you didn't have time to bond with the baby or get to know the baby well or get attached. At least you weren't that far along. At least you know you can get pregnant. At least you have other children. At least you aren't waking up every hour like I am to feed a newborn. Yeah, that was a nice little stab there. At least they aren't suffering. At least she died quickly. At least you aren't caring for a disabled child the rest of your life. This next one I call the spiritual category. God gives trials to his strongest warriors. You must be so strong. God never gives you more than you can handle. Maybe this happened because you didn't trust God enough. You should have prayed more and prayed harder, then you wouldn't have lost your baby. If you had more faith, your baby would have lived. This is just part of God's plan. God knew you weren't ready yet. God needed another angel. God needed them more than you did. Your baby's in a better place. It's okay. Do you think this is punishment for something you did when you were younger? Maybe like karma? Well, I guess God took care of that pregnancy for you. And these are all things that mothers, I'm not making these up. These are things that moms reported that have actually been said to them. So this is our next little area, the random category. This is a big one. Everything happens for a reason, so it's okay. There must have been something wrong with the baby. You wouldn't have wanted it anyways. I guess you'll learn next time not to announce your pregnancy so early. Yeah. Are you still taking maternity leave even though your baby died? Aren't you over that yet? It's time to move on. You need to get over your loss. People go through a lot worse. I know exactly how you feel. I lost my pet last summer. So were you even really pregnant? Now that you're pregnant again, you have a replacement. I wouldn't have been able to go through that. That's horrible. She wasn't compatible with life, so it's better off this way. You didn't want to carry them to term anyways. What did you do to cause all this? When are you going to have another baby so you can get better? Well, maybe you would have been a horrible mother. You need to stop posting pictures of your dead kid on Facebook. When you talk about your baby, it makes others uncomfortable, and it's not really fair, so you should stop. When you can get rid of your baby things, it's time. Your baby really wasn't human, so it's okay. After seeing the baby's picture, what is that? Have you considered adoption? Because that's a great response. These are some other things. Let's see. After the mom has mentioned that their baby has passed away, these are things not to do after mom's mentioned. Changing the subject quickly, shifting uneasily, and trying to look around the room and not make eye contact. Saying, oh, well, I didn't want to bring it up. Can we talk about something else now? This is really sad. And for subsequent pregnancies, I'm so glad you're finally going to be a mom. Guys, they are a mom. I bet your folks are happy to finally be having a grandbaby. Maybe you'll have a boy this time when their baby that passed was a boy. I bet you're going to take care of yourself this time so your baby doesn't die. That's a classic. So those are some things to try to avoid. When you're working with these moms, try to avoid anything that's going to be belittling or make it as if their loss doesn't count or doesn't matter. Stay away from the at least. As a human, we're programmed to try to want to fix things and make it a little bit better. And we think that if we can throw some glaze on it, that somehow we can make it look pretty. It's not a pretty subject. We don't have to try to fix it. That's not what we have to do. So some things to say and do. Say, I'm sorry for your loss. That's a really simple one. Say to them, it's okay not to be okay. I'll keep you in my thoughts, prayers, or close to my heart. I'm remembering blank and fill in the actual baby's name with you today. I'm remembering Amalia with you today. I'm remembering Daisy with you today. I don't know exactly how you feel, but your baby's important, and I'd love to listen if you want to talk. What's your favorite memory of your baby? Asking them to share their memories with their baby. I love to see your baby's picture if you want to share it. I'd be honored to hear your story, and I'm here to listen when you're ready. Be gentle and patient with yourself. What you're experiencing is normal. Don't numb the grief. Take your time. Grief has no time limit. It's okay that you're still sad. You are the best mother you could be while you had your baby. Your baby felt your love. You're not alone. A lot of mothers have experienced this. Those feelings of grief are very normal. You're doing the best you can given the situation. You've handled the situation with grace and dignity. I don't really know what to say, but I'm here for you. I miss him too, and I didn't even meet him. I can't imagine how hard it is for you. I don't know exactly how you feel, but I've also lost a baby, and I know it can be very difficult. I'm here to listen. Things to do or things to actively say and approach, using the baby's name in conversation whenever possible, listening actively to a mom as she's speaking. Sit and take the time to look at pictures or memory items if the mom wants to share those things. Acknowledge the baby's existence and just being there for a mom or giving a hug when appropriate. This you can't really do at WIC, but bringing a meal or giving a gift card or giving a special memorial item in the baby's honor, and then giving anything with baby's name written on it. So these are the lists that that I compiled from what people have shared of what they liked and what they didn't like said to them after their baby passed. So again, I think the important thing is to validate, normalize, be compassionate, and really honor their baby. Those are things that you guys can do easily when you're interacting with moms. Making the entire staff aware that people who have lost a baby are going to be in a heightened state of emotion, and that things are triggers from the person who picks up the phone when a mom is going to call and report that her baby's died, or the person who's trying to follow up and finding out why a mom didn't show up to her appointment, letting them know that, educating them so they're ready in case a mom says that they've lost their baby. To the person who's weighing and measuring mom, you don't want the mom to be in there getting weighed and measured and they say, so how's your pregnancy going, when they just lost their baby. So making the whole staff aware, having the peer counselor, the breastfeeding peer counselor being sensitive to the fact that they may have had another loss or that they're trying to pump and donate. Then listening. You guys may be the first person this mom shares with that she has a loss. I know that kind of sounds crazy, but I don't know how many times I've spoken or I've been working with a family and somebody comes up to me and says, I never told anybody this, but I had a loss 10 years ago, or I had a loss 15 years ago, or I had a miscarriage, or I didn't tell anybody, but I just miscarried last week. They want to find somebody that they can confide in, but it's hard to know who to confide in sometimes. And again, our society downplays loss so much that you may be the only person that they get to talk to. They may not have a supportive family at home. I had one mom that I was working with in the hospital, and she was such a proud mama. She lost her baby around, I think, 25 weeks. And she was holding her baby, and she had bathed her baby and dressed her baby, and her family is there, and we were taking pictures, and the dad was sitting there, her father, the grandfather, was sitting there just glaring. This isn't right. You shouldn't be doing this. You just need to let that baby go. He was from a different generation, a different mindset. He didn't find the importance of her loving on and connecting with her baby. So their family might not be supportive. And if she has a future loss, she might not even tell her family that she's had a loss. So you may be the only person that they ever share. And so it's important to listen. Take extra time. Let them share their thoughts and feelings of their baby. Maybe they're finally ready to share more about their story, and you're the person that gets to listen to it. Be ready to share resources. Again, I don't expect every one of us to be an expert on bereavement. You don't need to have all the answers, but if you have resources that you can send the mom along to and help them get connected so that they can continue in a healthy way in their grief journey, that's a wonderful thing. Creating a list of local support groups. So I know we're from all over Ohio, and different places in Ohio have different local support groups. You could call the hospital and find out if they have a list that you might be able to use as well. A lot of times when a mom has a loss and they're in the hospital, they're given a packet of all this stuff, but they don't necessarily look at that packet. And in that packet, they may have a list of resources in there, but the mom may not have actually opened up and looked at it. So it's important to have local resources that you can send moms to. There might also be local resources that give items to mothers or have in-person support groups. So maybe make that a goal for your local WIC office, is to create a list, a comprehensive list for everything local in your area. Again, I'm going to reiterate for moms that are going to be pumping and donating, remember to still text them and still reach out to them and encourage them. But for any of your moms, the one mom said, 2 weeks later, she had somebody from WIC call her just to see if she was doing okay. What can we do to take an extra step to support these moms who are bereaved? And another idea is maybe have each month your staff sit down and create a list of bereavement cards where the whole staff signs and says, I'm sorry for your loss. How nice would it be when the mom is leaving their WIC appointment to just be walking out with a simple card from their WIC staff saying, I'm so sorry for your loss. It's simple. It wouldn't take a lot of time, but it's showing an extra level of care. It's validating and recognizing their baby. And so that's something simple that can be done. The next point that I want to talk on is, what do you do when you don't agree? And what I mean by this is, what do you do when there's a situation where you have a mom that comes in and might be continuing to term after a terminal diagnosis and you don't agree with that? You think she should terminate. Or you have a mom that terminated her baby and you don't think she should do that. Or what if the baby died because of an unsafe sleep condition at home? Or what if the mom is a substance abuse user and that might have been a factor in why the baby died? Or what if this mom already has 10 other kids that she shouldn't take care of and shouldn't be pregnant again, and maybe you personally are happy that she lost the baby because it's one less baby she has to take care of? What do you do when you as a person have these conflicting emotions? Because it happens. We don't always agree with the people that we're dealing with, so what do you do? My personal advice would be to set aside what you know about that mom and what you feel about that mom, to set it all aside and only view her as a bereaved mother, and show compassion and show love and show kindness. We don't have to agree with how the baby died. We don't have to agree with why the baby died. We don't have to agree with the situation. One mom I worked with, one family I worked with, one of the parents were actively being investigated into the cause of death for their child. And I'm in the hospital room, and knowing that CPS is removing the other kids from the household, and that a police officer is going to come and interview the parent that they're suspecting. What do I do in that moment? I still support each parent equally. They're going to have the rest of their lives to deal with the guilt. They don't need judgment from me. What they need in the moment is someone to help them process their grief, process the fact that they lost their child, and give them love and support. And so it doesn't matter if we agree, if we don't agree, it doesn't really matter what our feelings are on the situation. We need to realize that they're still a bereaved parent, and their loss is going to impact them for the rest of their lives. Your impact. You guys have the ability to impact a person's journey. When a mom loses a baby, it stays with them forever, forever. One of the moms in my book, there's a photo of her hands. Her name is Vivian, and when I interviewed her, she was 91 years old. She had 2 miscarriages back in her 20s. When I was interviewing her, she was in tears as if she had just miscarried yesterday. She remembered every detail surrounding her miscarriage. She loved those 2 babies that she lost. She described how she had no support and how she was told to move on, but it stuck with her forever. And she was 91 years old. She had been losing her memory, but that's one of the few memories that she still had. She remembers the way people treat her. She was talking about the nurse she had in the hospital the day that she had her miscarriage. You guys are going to have an impact on these moms' journeys when they come into WIC and they're talking about their loss. You can have an impact. And what impact are you going to leave? Is it going to be a positive one, or is it going to be a negative one? I read the stories about the moms and their WIC experiences. Some of them will think about their loss and remember that WIC was a positive experience. And some of them will think of their loss and remember WIC was a negative experience. What type of impact are you going to leave them? Are you going to help lift their burden, or are you going to add more burden on top? They will remember how you treated them in regards to their loss. They will remember the things that you said. They will remember the look on your face. I still remember the way my nurses treated me when it came to my son, and it's been almost 6 years, and I can remember phrases that they used and looks that they gave me. I remember the positive nurses. I remember the negative nurses. It stays with you. I'm sorry, my brain just jumped. But it's so important. So how are you going to help these moms? How are you going to impact them? Are you going to be able to give them additional resources? Are you going to give them words of comfort and encouragement? Or are you going to be a negative experience? I know some of you guys might be sitting here thinking, gosh, a lot of this is really outside of my scope. I'm here to talk about lactation, or I'm here to talk about nutrition. And guys, as a human, dealing with another human, showing compassion and kindness should never be outside of our scope of practice. Bereavement may not be part of your job title or your job description, but showing care and compassion and kindness is something that we can all do. It doesn't take a lot of effort, but the way you treat these moms who've experienced a loss will impact them for the rest of their journey. So I just want to close by saying thank you. I know what you guys do is difficult. I said I'm a WIC recipient. I've sat in the office where I've seen like these little terror kids running around, tearing up the place, and you have to deal with those little kids and you have to deal with their moms. A lot of people are pretty grumpy sitting in the WIC office, and they're not very thankful for the service you're providing them. I get it, it's hard. And then you get this bereaved mom who's coming in here and is crying, and you have to deal with her too. So I understand from day to day it's really difficult, but thank you for providing the service that you're providing. Thank you for being there for moms and for supporting them day in and day out and dealing with the things that you have to deal with every day. I don't know where we're at on time. I'm so sorry. But do we have time still for questions? Okay, so questions, comments, anything from the crowd. Nothing is off the table. I am a complete open book. If you have questions about any of my losses or any of my experiences, I'm happy to share.
Do you think it would be beneficial for WIC to make some kind of pamphlet or book for our bereavement mothers?
Yes, definitely. I think that would be a wonderful resource. There are, or you can look into where to purchase pre-made books. There are books that other organizations use for bereaved mothers. But yes, having a book or a pamphlet for moms who are bereaved, I think would be very helpful.
How could WIC broach the subject with their prenatal visits in a sensitive manner? If something were to happen with your pregnancy, know that you can continue your benefits. What's the sensitive way of putting that? A lot of people think it's bad luck, bad karma to mention anything bad might happen.
Yeah, that's tough because, like you said, a lot of people have different walks of life. But I think in just the simple, when you're going through all the introductory information with a mom, explaining what WIC is involved, I think it's really important just to slide it in there like every other bullet point. Here's the benefits you can receive, how long you can receive them. If unfortunately something were to happen to your pregnancy or your baby, you can continue WIC, and then just keep going and just incorporate it as if it's any other bullet point. I think what really sets it off is when we dwell on it and really blow it out of proportion. But when you're presenting it just like any other piece of information in a whole bulleted list, and slide that in there, I think that's an easy way to just incorporate it and not have it be like a standalone point where moms are dwelling on that.
I was just going to say this actually just happened in our office back in, I want to say February. I'm the WIC peer, so I touched base with some of my pregnant moms, and I had a mom who was interested in an infant feeding class, so I texted her and said, hey, I was just wondering if you still wanted to sign up. And she told me, I lost my baby girl at 25 weeks. The hospital was supposed to call you. And I felt so bad the whole day, the whole week. Ever since then, I've been hesitant to get in contact with my pregnant moms. And I felt so bad. And she actually just came back yesterday and she's pregnant again. So I was able to tell her face to face, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And she said, it wasn't your fault. The hospital was supposed to call. I signed a paper and they never called us. They didn't call other people. She said, she's like, it was okay. It was part of my healing, but I've been very mindful of that ever since. When I text my pregnant moms, I'll say, has baby arrived? Or I try to word things a little more sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
But that really made me think of my individual life. And I had to think about how do I tell this poor mom, you can still get benefits. I don't, so it was a learning experience and we felt awful, but it was eye-opening for us to know that these situations can happen and they don't even get informed even though we're supposed to.
I think that even maybe having a little pre-made script at your office, sit down as a staff and come up with a pre-made script of, if this happens, what do I say? And have something that's already created that's very tactful and sensitive. Obviously, you want to cater it to each mom. You don't want to send out a pre-made thing that doesn't apply to them. But try to have something that, when you're sideswiped like that, to already have something that you can pull from and go to so that you're not just shocked and not sure what to say. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm so sorry that happened. I love that you get to now hopefully support her and you can be sensitive since she's back at WIC with another pregnancy. You can support her through that pregnancy.
Kind of going with your experience when you were at the hospital and there was really not an option for you to pump through there, renting and everything. And with you talking with some of the WIC moms, were any of them aware that they could there's a pump program, Ohio WIC has a pump program?
I honestly didn't know that until I was preparing for this presentation. I was talking with Megan. I had no idea that WIC provides pumps. And so I think that's, again, another piece that moms need to be educated on and they're not aware of. None of these moms that I talked with mentioned if they knew that or not, but I know personally, I had no clue. And I'm very happy I know now because some of the moms that I work with personally who are bereaved mothers are on WIC, and I can encourage them and let them know if they do want to pump and donate, they can get a pump through WIC. So I think that's a huge thing that people are unaware of.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I feel as though it resonates with the vast majority of moms that I've talked to about loss. They're tearful, they appreciate you expressing condolence. It makes me think though of those few that have a different reaction and say these things happen, and they definitely want to they quickly give you the message of, I don't want I don't want to go there.
Yes, some moms are not going to want to talk about it and are going to shut down very quickly, and that is something that you need to mentally prepare for. You know, some moms are going to want to process their loss, and others are just going to want to shut it down as fast as can be, and that's okay. They may not be ready to talk about their loss yet. It's not that it didn't impact them. They may just not be ready to share, or they may not be comfortable sharing with you about it. But they will still remember that you offered your condolences, and they're still going to remember that you were sensitive. So when they walk back out to their car and they're driving away and they're angry still about the fact that they have a loss, in their mind they're still going to know that you were supportive of them. But yeah, not every mom is going to want to talk about it, especially some cultures don't really allow their moms to grieve certain ways, and so that's important to realize as well. Different cultures have different approaches. But it's still important to show that level of compassion.
How do we offer the extra support to moms who have lost their babies, saying, letting her know that there are things that can support her, like these foundations, but also like if the mom chooses that she wants to breastfeed, or if she doesn't know that's an option for her, how do we talk to her mom about like maybe donating her breast milk if she wants to, or even doing like milk order and things like that?
Yeah, so it's interesting because a lot of times when I'm working with moms, one of the reasons we have a full birth plan that we go over with our moms is they don't know what options exist when they're going to have to deliver a baby that's already passed away. And so, and I say that just because people just don't know what's out there. And so when you have a mom that comes to you and says that they lost a baby, you can say, well, there's some information I can share with you if you'd like to hear it. I can explain to you some resources and some options. Would you like to hear more? And just presenting it that way, letting them know, I have information I can give to you. Would you like to hear it? And letting them take the next step. And they may be like the mom that's closed off and be like, no, thank you, I'm fine. Or they may say, oh, yeah, what resources are out there? And you can say, well, there's resources to help you in your bereavement. There's resources for helping you get connected with other moms who've lost a baby. There's the option of possibly pumping and donating. And you can just approach it like that. Just let them know that there's resources available and then see if they want to move forward and kind of feel them out in the situation. You could also have a very small flyer created already that you could just hand to them and say, you may not want to talk about this now, but here's some resources that I want to give to you to reflect on when you're ready.
I just wanted to ask you, one of the things that we work with a lot with our postpartum moms is getting back in shape, after having a baby.
Yes. Just
like you were talking about with better nutrition and this and that. What is it, and you were also mentioning that 76% of moms are trying to get pregnant again within the next 3 months. So then I'm thinking to myself, well, I wonder if they're doing what they need to do to get themselves in shape for a really healthy pregnancy and to go into it because they just had a loss and their bodies just had
Yes.
and when do we bring that up to them? Have you thought about your future plans for pregnancy? And I don't mean from a standpoint of any of that. I mean from a standpoint of, are you continuing your vitamins? Or do we just ask them things like that to get back in shape and just keep it at that and not talk about getting pregnant again?
It's hard. I think, again, it's going to be down to each mom individually and see how they're responding in the conversation. Some moms are going to be ready to have that conversation and want to approach it, and the other moms are going to be too shut down and not in a good place for that. They should also be having those conversations with their care provider. Their care provider should be asking them those questions as well. But when you're working with them, just and you know they have a loss, say, you know, I don't know if you're planning on getting pregnant again soon, but it's really important if you are, that you A, are getting good nutrition, B, that you still take those prenatal vitamins, and C, that you're physically trying to get back in shape. And maybe just like bullet point list out those things and approach it that way. So, you know, I don't know if you are or not, but here's some things that you should be doing if you would like to get pregnant soon again. And again, that's a very non-threatening way of just giving them information, but still in a sensitive way.
Okay, so I think that's our last question. I just want to give another round of applause for Bethany.